Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm going to be doing my review for the Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So I was really excited for this book. Super excited for this book, and I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it 4.75 stars. So I enjoyed this book. It just wasn't as much as I expected to enjoy this book. I had really high hopes for this book. And I felt similarly in reading The Starless Sea the first time as I did when I read The Night Circus the first time. If you guys know my experience with The Night Circus, the first time I read it, I hated it. The second time I read it, I listened to the audiobook and I loved it like so much. And I didn't hate The Starless Sea this time around because I'm a very different reader now than I was back then. Back then, I didn't care for writing style at all. All I was a plot character reader. So I wanted plot, I wanted character. And if you read The Night Circus or you wanted heavy plot and character building, it's not there. You're not gonna get that in The Night Circus. And that's just a product of Erin Morgenstern's writing style. I feel like her writing style is like a good wine. It's an acquired taste and it gets better with age. By that, I mean, it gets better the more times you reread it. You can appreciate the actual writing for what it is more. So this is one of those books where, like, if you liked The Night Circus, I think you'll really like The Starless Sea. But it's one of those books that I feel like you have to reread it in order to really enjoy it. And I obviously haven't reread it yet. It just came out. I probably won't be rereading it till next year. I will definitely be rereading it at some point because I did really enjoy it. But this is one of those reviews. I'm not gonna follow like my typical structure for a review just because there's really no point in me talking about character or plot because I was not really attached to any of the characters. Like the main character, Zachary Ezra Rollins, I liked, but I was not super attached to him or anything like that. I'm still not entirely sure what happened with the plot. I read the entire book from beginning to end, and I'm still not entirely sure what happened. I think I will understand it better with a reread. It's one of those books that it's ambiguous enough that like you have to try and figure it out on your own what the author's actually trying to say. So it doesn't really make sense for me to talk about plot. But I will talk about some of the other aspects of the book that I generally don't talk about, like atmosphere and things like that. So first of all, this book is about the main character named Zachary Ezra Rollins, who is a graduate student. He goes to a library and he finds a book that is not cataloged in the system or anything like that. It's a very odd book. When he takes it home and starts reading it, he finds a passage in the book that is from his childhood, that was basically something from his childhood that he remembers pretty sharply. And it was just like kind of a weird experience that he had as a child. So he gets to kind of figuring out what happened when he was a child. And it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland down the rabbit hole sort of situation. And there are other characters that come in, and there's kind of like an adventure journey, but there are also these snippets from different storylines. And I listened to the audiobook. I decided specifically to get the audiobook for this one rather than the physical book because I knew with Erin Morgenstern's writing style, I love it on audio. I don't always enjoy the physical version of it. So that's why I decided to get it on audio, and I absolutely love the audiobook because it's full cast. And while a lot of times full cast really annoys me, like when they go back and forth the dialogue and it just feels like people are talking to each other from across a room or something like that, I don't like that. But in this book, the full cast really worked out well because there are storylines and stories that are not really related to like the main storyline of what's going on. So those snippets of storylines are done by a different narrator, so you can definitely tell them apart a lot easier than if they were all done by the same narrator. Some of the narrators were really good. Like the main narrator was fine. I had no problems with it, but some of like the side narrators, I really loved them. And I really liked how those side little storylines went. I think the side storylines I actually was way more into than the main storyline of the book. The way I would describe this book is like the Night Circus for book lovers. So like that's why I love this book, because I feel like eventually this will be like one of my favorite books of all time and I will love it. But as of right now, it's one of those things that it's very new with me and I'm still trying to decide how I feel about it, if that makes sense. So the atmosphere of this book is fantastic. I love the atmosphere of this book. It definitely has kind of like a darker atmosphere, but it's done in a very like mysterious, fantastical way that I really, really love. I did a tag recently that I talked about the Starless Sea because it has this like mystery surrounding the plot of the book, but the atmosphere has that like that very atmospheric fantasy writing that is like perfect for the winter time also. So like it's a good transition book from like fall to winter, and I enjoyed that aspect of the book. It definitely came at the right time of the year. There's also like a romance in this book, and it's done in like the Erin Morgenstern way where like it builds up to it, but at the same time it's ambiguous enough that you're not sure if she's actually meaning to make that a romance or if it's just kind of happening between the characters, which I love that about her writing. I will say that when it comes to writing, I was teensy bit disappointed, mostly because I had really high expectations for the writing because I loved the night circus and I loved all of the imagery in the night circus, and I just felt like the Starless Sea didn't have as many like specific images that stuck in my head as the Night Circus did. But then again, I've read the Night Circus 3 times now. I've only read the Starless Sea once, so I feel like it's not even a fair comparison between the two books. So this is a book that I would highly recommend for people who like this type of book. If you're a plot-driven reader, if you're a highly character-driven reader, this is probably not the book for you. But if you love good atmospheric fantasies, if you love fantastic writing and beautiful prose, then I highly recommend The Starless Sea. It was such a beautiful book. I definitely recommend the audiobook. I loved the audiobook, and I'm definitely excited to reread this book eventually. If you've read this book, let me know down in the comments. I would love to discuss it with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos frequently in this channel, so consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.